Hi everyone, this is Unleash DDN. Today we have the Legends directors, which is crazy. Shreya and Kyle, two of the three. Whoa! And we're just gonna do some quick introduction, real quick. Oh, I don't know if it'll be real quick. So obviously you guys are directors, but also I think there's just another human side of you guys. Like that's probably there, even though being a director is probably intimidating for anyone to talk to you. So I just wanted to get more of that. So the two introductions we're gonna do is one, introduce your co but introduce you to them. Like, if you were going to be director, what would you need to know about them? So I'll do that for Nitish real quick. I'll do that for Nitish, and Nitish, I guess, can do that for me as an example of like if you were working with him for Unleash DN, what would you need to know? I guess I can go first, and I'll introduce Nitish. So if you wanted to work with Nitish on Unleash DN, there's something that you need to know. Um, he's will submit most things pretty late, sometimes 1 or 2 days max. But he always gets his part work done. Like honestly, I would not have been able to start this whole channel with him because he was the first person to help me submit my second, third, fourth video, and that got a lot of traction. And like I would not be able to do like the amazing edits he pulls off all the time. So I'm really grateful and appreciative. It would be nice if he submitted things a day or two earlier, but it's the last minute. But that's always there, and like he's always a social butterfly. At any single meeting, he always will ask, "How are you guys doing?" and never let it end on like only logistical stuff, which I always appreciate. So that's his introduction, and I'm Jayesh.
Okay, so introducing Jayesh, right? Jayesh cares a lot about like quality and emotional weight, more than he cares about that a lot. And I think that's really cool because every single short that we put out, he makes sure that it's something that one, he feels like that hits home for him, and he makes sure that it can hit home for everyone else too. And I'm more of the type where like I'm like, let's just get it done, let's just post it. Um, but Jay should always make sure that like it has that emotional weight because that's what's important, right? It's like hitting people at their heartstrings. And I think if Jay wasn't there, we would just be putting more out content without really having the emotional aspect of it. Which is why like so many people have hit us up that we're having this conversation right now too, because like y'all felt something when y'all watched some of the videos, and most of it, if not all the credit goes to Jay. Um,
That's so cute.
so
Yeah,
that's
that was really cute.
introducing
I did
Jay.
not expect that.
Sure. So this is my co-director Shreya. I think two things you need to know about her. She's very nice, loyal to her friends. Like no, you'll never find anyone who's more loyal than her. Like you should just see her always fighting for her friends, for everyone involved that she knows like that. Very much respect that of her. Other thing is she's always on Slack. Like it'll be 4 a.m. and I think I'm the only one up. I send something and she just reacts to the message. I'm like, there's no way this person's up. I don't know how she does it.
God. Okay, I can go. Okay, also that's so sweet, Kyle. Anyway, okay, so this is Kyle, my co-director. I think some things about him. Well, first of all, he has a very clear obsession with ducks. That's really strange, and you just have to know that about him. Second, I would say that he's very much like a he's very smart, which throws you off, I will say. So he's very smart and he knows how I think he's a rule follower. Like if you're saying that you're going to do something, you should do it that way type of a person. And so it's like when you're working with him, I really respect him for that because I'm like a little late like lazy with all of that stuff. So him checking in is just like, okay, but like are you doing this? Like is that like are you following the rule? Like is that like how it's supposed to go? So like I really respect him for that. So he keeps me in check with that. But yeah, that's something about him. Um, and wait, I had something else, but oh, he's also a bully, but can be really nice when need be. So he's like he has a really good balance between being a bully and being nice. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And
I'm just
my
here
favorite
crying at
segment.
4 a.m., being like, "Oh my God, Kyle bullied me so much today. I have to make it up by like responding to this message so he's actually nice to me."
Exactly, that's exactly how it goes.
But dude, like let's get into it. So okay, for everyone who's watching, right? Legends director is kind of ambiguous. So what does the Legends director actually do?
How do you want to take that?
Sure, I guess. That's a good question. So, before I like applied to be director, I didn't realize how much work a voice director actually does. When you think about like normal comp directors, they're just running a competition, right? But as a legend director, you're running the whole entire circuit and season. And you think that only includes like the PC competing teams and competition, but it also includes the non-PCs and non PC competing teams as well. And I think that's like one thing I didn't realize, like our like scope is very large. There's over 100 teams in the Fusion circuit. Just like managing everything is very different. And one thing I also realized is like Legends is run and like DDN as a whole is run like a company, honestly. Like we have like a whole C suite with a CEO, all that stuff. And it's like very professional. Like I know like when I was a director of NBC in the past, like bro, I didn't take that very seriously. Like I mean I obviously took it seriously, but I was like more for like it's like a school club, right? Or like once part of dancing, it's like just like a club, right? I didn't realize how professional this organization is, and it's like very helpful for developing your skills. So going back to answer your question, like what does a director do? I mean, you very much like you create a board and you manage the whole entire circuit. You like help um accept PCs, help develop them, help foster growth in our circuit, you know. And then as the season progresses, you're pushing out documents like our MOUs, our all of our guidelines, managing our judging database, our vendors for competitions. And then once the season kind of dwindles down and Legends like our Legends competition starts in April, we then kind of just run like a normal competition to like creating mixer ideas, creating hospitality boxes, stuff like that. I'm sure you want to add on.
Yeah, I think the scope is very large. Like Kyle said, I think it's kind of crazy that there is so much that we look over sometimes. Like I think the summer was especially like really hard. There was just so many things that we have to learn, so many things that we have to keep up with. And it's crazy that like, this is something that people do every year, right? Like there's new directors every year. They have to learn all these things for the entire circuit every year. And there's so much more than that what goes on behind the scenes. Like Kyle said, it's a very professional organization. So every relationship that we like incur is also so important. So I think that, like he said with NDC, with AKD, I wasn't necessarily like, um, I don't know, like every interaction that I had, I wasn't necessarily documenting it or like making sure that I was appropriately speaking or something like that, right? Like you just don't think that much into it. But with Legends, there is that aspect of it where you are so particular about the language you use, like who you're talking to, how you're producing, what you're producing. It's just on a much bigger scale, and it's pretty cool to see like how it's not like really like professional people. This isn't a job, right? So it's just kind of cool how like you see how much people care about it enough to like put all this time and effort in, like aside from their like actual day jobs and actual lives.
In terms of like the hierarchy of like, because y'all said it's very structured, right? Who's above y'all in terms of who is kind of managing y'all as directors?
I think that's a little complicated of a question because I think in terms of like legends and everything like decision making, we do technically make all the decisions, but we do have like our advisors who kind of like work with us, right? So I don't think it's like necessarily that they're above us, but it's more that like we work with them to make sure that like we're making our best decisions because
Yeah.
again, we just came into the role a couple of months ago. We don't really know what's been happening in the past, who has done what or what has happened. So they kind of like steer us into going like, hey, like this has happened in the past. Maybe you don't want to do this. Maybe you know what I mean? Like they kind of advise us. And then C-suite's there just to kind of like, I think to keep the entire organizational component there, if that makes sense. So like dealing with all the financial stuff, like all of that is more like comes from the top, or keeping it like structured organization, like legal stuff and all of that, right? But in terms of like circuit decisions itself, it's something that we, I think, as leadership make as a whole. It's not something that like me and Cal can just wake up and go, "Hey, we want to do this today," and then we just make the decision. It's a very like, like a hierarchy. Like, we all work together. It's more of like a group decision making and not very much like a, oh, this is gonna happen today.
I heard there was a lot of work involved. So obviously, most people probably wouldn't just do work to do work. So I was wondering what was your guys' motivation behind being a director in the circuit and then also at Legends too.
Okay, I can start first circuit. It was kind of really funny. So, when my whole like I guess progression was I joined a dance team as a freshman, right? And then a lot of people. Oh, I went to Case Western, and like a lot of people on our dance team, they just go to like NDC or whatever to be liaison or whatever. Like I was, yeah, just do it, it's fun. So I just did it randomly, and everyone got a team liaison spot. I was the only kid that got like a production board liaison spot. And I asked like, why is that? And they're like, oh, you're the only one who tried in your application. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, why did I get punished? Because I thought like it's so cool to be a team liaison or whatever. So I ended up being like a production board liaison, and that basically meant I helped run
Wait,
the
can I
show.
interrupt you real quick? What's a production board liaison?
Yeah, so basically, I just helped a production chair run the show. So we're on the headsets, all that stuff. And that was the year NEC had a very stacked lineup. We had like I think Lox, Asura, Katra, Raftar, Penambaka. It was like that 1 year legends, that nerve year, right the year right after COVID. So like all those teams could have made legends basically. So it was like a very stressful environment because all these teams like they're obviously they want to win, because they want to go to legends, right? So no, I was like I was like working there and with one of the previous directors, Fade, and did a good job. And then they're like, yeah, next year, Kyle, you're quit reduction because no one else knows what to do. And I'm like, oh, great. So then I kind of did that, and then the year after, like, yeah, Kyle, you to be director because no one else wants to do it. And I'm like, oh, what? So then I became NBC director. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I'm graduating early from Case Western. I have this gap year. DDN's been a huge part of my life. I really want to be more involved with Legends Board. And then, I want to help make changes. I come from a very small team, obviously, and I've noticed the good differences, the challenges we face compared to other teams, when we compete in competitions, kind of like the lack of respect we face. And that's why I want to really push for equality in circuit. And that's one of the main reasons why I kind of applied to be Legends Director.
Yeah, for me, circuit involvement, well, I was kind of the opposite in the sense of like knowing about DDN before. I was very much one of those like middle school and high school obsessed people who used to watch like circuit, like all like the entire all the teams that went to BA and Legends, and I'd be like, oh my God, this is crazy, this is insane. And so I always dreamt of like joining Chelka because I'm from like the UNC area originally. So like, I used to grow up like watching them. So I've always wanted to join Chelka. And so after I came to UNC, my first like thought was to go join Chelka. And I absolutely loved my team. I loved being on the team. I loved being a dancer. I loved production, so I took a production manager. And then AKD, I guess. So AKD was kind of dead in at UNC because of like COVID and just like we just weren't active in activity. And so then they were like they had like director openings and they kept published like they posted it on Instagram. So I was like, okay, I guess it's like open to the general public. Okay, I might as well apply. Let's see how this goes. And then I got director. And so then that's just how it went from there. And I guess like Legends director, this is post grad, like because I just graduated this year as well. And I was like, wait, I think there was like multiple components to it. So I think one component is that I love the circuit a lot. And I was like, I want one last year of like I was AKD director. I was like on like I was on a dance team. Like I guess like what is the last thing for me to do? And it kind of seemed like it was Legends director. And I think I wanted to. There was again multiple components. Like I wanted to meet people post grad, and I thought this would be like a fun way to be on board. And two, I love the circuit a lot, and I think like um there was a lot of times like the reason I became Legends director or like exec on Chelka was because like I like being a part of leadership that is able to make changes in whatever organization you're a part of. And I was like, oh wait, there's some stuff that I would change about Legends, like not in a bad way, but just like, oh, like I wish I could be a part of those changes. And so I guess that's where I went. I was like, okay, that'd be fun.
And some of those changes, like what type of changes were there?
I think it's harder to say because I think like when you think about the legend scope, I think people think that like, oh, if the directors want to make the change, like it just happens, or like I don't know. It's not as easy once you actually get up here because there's so much more like things to keep like in mind. There's so many more people that are involved. I think the biggest change that I wanted to make was more like like I think I wanted people to be more connected. That was like a huge thing for me was that as a comp organizer and as like like an exec member on a dance team, I was very involved with both spectrums. But I feel like a lot of people don't really understand each other's point of views. I think there's a lot of times dancers have like a lot of like anger towards like comp organizers and vice versa, and I think like there's just like a lack of understanding a lot of times, just that like there's a lot of effort that these organizers put in. And there's also a lot of effort that these dancers and exec members like put in, like literally so much time and energy. So I think like the biggest thing for me coming into Legends Director was kind of like bridging that gap and trying to show people that like we're not that scary. I don't know, like even like as legends, like I think people think that like, oh, we're these like overseeing entity or something that people don't really like talk to, or I don't know, we're just not that, like that's not who we are, I guess. We're with the lack of better terms, we're really chill guys. But we just don't care. Like I mean, not don't care, sorry. But I don't know. We just graduated. Like we're not some like overseeing entity or power. We're just dancers and comp organizers too. And I wanted to like bridge that gap so that everyone in the circuit, I guess, feels a little more connected.
Yeah, about the intimidation aspect. Definitely felt like that before I actually got to hop on a call with you guys. Because like the Legends directors reached out to me. Oh my, not that like I still there. Like oh my God, it's amazing. But like at the same time, it's like you guys are people too, and you like technically are like my age, and just like people are doing their own thing and just like trying to figure out how to make the most out of any situation they're given with. And I think especially I wanted to like mention more about that comp board care because I think like okay, so like for me, when in my dance team, like I remember there's like lights go off at the wrong time or like there's a speaker that goes wrong and something like that. And, like we're like obviously upset, but I think the upset gets directed towards obviously like who's in charge. But I also think like who's in charge is also the same like most, if they're good directors, if they're good people who care, then they're probably as upset that it didn't work out for you too. Like if the lights went off stage or the audio didn't work, like they're probably like, oh my God, I messed up this team's whole like routine or schedule, and they put so much effort in. Like they're probably taking the weight of their responsibility as much as the team is too. Like, do you guys want to like mention more about like what that feels like, and like if you had the worst mistake in Legends, like how would that feel for you?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I can speak from personal experience, but I know that I
You
know
have a
that
personal
AKD
story.
has had a bit of tech problems just because of venue, and so on, and it's been really hard. And I know that like we've always had to like in the past 2 years had to deal with. Usually it's like 7 out of 8 teams are well, and then there's just that one team that gets like something happens, and it gets more vile every year. Anyway, um, I think that's exactly what you said. Like I think it's a lot about like understanding. I think again, as a dancer, I was very much hurt for the team that would get screwed over because it's like I understand why you're upset and I would feel for them, right? Like this is something that's like I feel like maybe sometimes like the dancers don't necessarily see that part because like for example in my like when that happened for us, I wasn't necessarily with the team. I was instead with the judges or like Legends board trying to figure out like what that looks like for them, figuring out the times. So maybe like the dancers didn't necessarily see me trying to like kind of fix the situation or trying to see like what I could do to help their situation. Um, and but I agree with you. Like I think like a comp organizers a lot of the times, hopefully, right? Like if they are understanding of the dancer's perspective, they should understand how much effort and time that these dancers have put into their set. And yes, I'm not saying that they should be angry, right? Like dancers also should be like like make sure that they're respectful when they're approaching these comp organizers because they should know that it's no one does this intentionally, right? Like it's not like yes, I want to screw over that team, I want to do that. Things happen, and like we're all college students, right? These aren't like professional production companies. Um, things happen, and no matter how much you like try to stop them, how much you prepare for them, things happen. And I think it's more about like that understanding and caring like nature that you have. I think like being able to like I don't know, like even go up to them and just like look at them and be like, I'm sorry, right? Like I'm sorry that this happened. I understand that like you this is like an unfair situation and that you guys need to like I don't know, like what can I do to help you, right? Like as organizers, you need to be able to go up to them and say that. And as dancers, you're also supposed to like hear them out and try to work with them on what can be done next, right? Like no one's out to like hurt you, right? Everyone just needs to figure out a better way to understand each other to like best address the situation instead of just panicking, I guess, and just making assumptions about like what happened or what went wrong or what other people are feeling and thinking. But Kyle, I don't know how much you had to deal with it because NDC was a perfect competition.
So there have been usually like small issues, obviously, and I totally felt for the teams. There's some issues with the mix, and and it's kind of sad because like those teams are very upset about it, and obviously I understand um where they're coming from, but like I hope they realize it wasn't like you said, it wasn't on purpose. Honestly, that team, I wanted them to win. That's how much I love them because they submitted everything on time. Most teams don't submit stuff on time. I was up to like 2 a.m. dealing with other teams, but this team they submitted everything on their deadline. So I really wanted them to win, and I was sad like this issues happen, and I think that's what people don't really need to understand. Like like Shreya was saying, we never want this to happen. It's like sometimes it's just out of our control, obviously. But yeah, I totally agree. Like there's better ways to approach the issue, obviously, because sometimes teams, as a dancer, it's happened to me before, right? But I've never gone to and yelled and like swore at like a competition organizer because I realized this stuff happens. And also, I think another thing that's very important to understand is like judges really don't care about like these tech issues. Like they understand it happens, and it really does not affect your judging scores. That's something I very much learned, like being an election director. Like when you're seeing these deliberations, the judges are not like, oh my god, this lighting cue is off. It's a blackout now. We can't blah blah blah. Like no, they're not like that. They're like they understand like it's at any competition this happens, and they don't really take points off for you. They understand like so like for the team for when it happens to the teams, they have to understand like it's not the end of the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like the judges understand this stuff happens and like they're gonna still score you fairly.
Mhm. I I relate with that so much on both sides because obviously being a dancer, any mistake, it's just like, oh my God. Like Nitish and I were talking about it like on Moksha, about like for him, his curtains broke on stage. Just like, oh my God. Most people would be like, this is terrible. This is the most like worst mistake I've ever made in my life. But like being on the other perspective and like being like speaking with a judge, also like thinking from a judge's perspective, like I don't want to neg that team just because like something wrong happened. Like I want to judge them for their whole performance, like how everything works together and their whole storyline. And it's like one technical issue or one mistake that happens. That's just like something that like obviously makes sense. Like that mistake means probably a lot, and like everything would be nice if it went perfectly. I think one thing that would be nice to like for most people to remember is just like things don't go perfectly, and it's just making the best out of the worst situations is how you create better outcomes for yourself instead of reacting to a worse situation. Did you want to say anything? Seems like you wanted to talk. No? Hello.
I do like I'm okay, so when you said judging doesn't care about tech issues, I want to know more about that. I'm like trying to figure out how to like ask what I'm curious about. But how does that work? How when you're a judge and you're looking at a set and like I know with Lux, I think it was a year ago, it was like light was like going into the judge's eyes. And they just couldn't see the set, which is like an extreme example. Um, how does that work? Like how do tech issues go into judging?
Well, I think there's some tech issues, right? That like obviously there's instances where it really screws up the set and like that's different. So and I think like when judges are talking about it with each other, again, this is like it'd be better for like a judge to maybe describe like more about how they felt and how they feel
Yeah.
scoring about it. But just from like an external point of view, like when they're talking about it or what they're told to kind of like not keep that in, like you're not allowed to judge based on that. So like when you're talking and deliberating between the other judges, you're not allowed to bring that up
Mm,
with like the other judges. So for example, like if there was like a blackout where there was not supposed to be, and we tell them right, like right as soon as they like enter the deliberations, we tell them all the tech mishaps or like anything that they should note. If there's any holes in the set, any health emergencies that like a team has been having, anything that a team wants us to let a judge know, we let them know. And basically, like they're not allowed to like use any of those factors into their judging and deliberations, right?
Wait,
And so
I
when they're
want to correct
talking
you real
about it,
quick. A
yeah,
team can
yeah.
like communicate that like team members have been having health issues. Like if someone blacked out on not blacked out on stage, like threw up right after, or like wasn't able to like come on stage for a particular formation, or like a injury happened that a formation doesn't exist in its right formations. You
Yeah,
can
you
say
can
that
let
over something.
yeah, you can let the judges know anything, right? It's like up to them as to like how much they take it into account in their head because like that's something that we can't control, right? Like I can't get in their head and be like, "Oh, you have to like judge them that way," but they do take it into account, right? Like for example, I know that one year we had one of our lead dancers was hospitalized the night before the competition, and like she still performed with us the next day, but we like we wanted to let the judges know that like she was having this health emergency, so if her energy was lower or something like that, like like this was the situation. And yeah, you can feel free to let the judges know of any external situations, right? Like obviously, like if they're just not performing the best on stage, that's not something that they're going to take into account. But if it's something that like, oh hey, we have a hole in the set because this like person broke their leg a couple days ago, like that's okay, like we understand that and they're not going to take that into account, right? Like so it's yeah, you can let them know anything and they'll make sure to take that into account and not like judge you for that. And same with the tech issues, right? Like obviously I think there's to an extent recovery is a big thing, right? I think a lot of judges more than anything, more than the tech issue like, itself, they look at recovery. Like even if there was a blackout, did you stop dancing? Did you just keep going? Like if this mixed like I don't know, like whatever it is, right? Like, what was your recovery rate like? And obviously, it's dependent on like how insane the problem was as well. And I think that's all like very subjective, and that's something that only like a judge can like more go into like about how they felt during that moment and about how like they maybe like took that into account. But from our perspective, we're telling them to not talk about it, and we like kind of keep them in check for that throughout the deliberations. Like, hey, we talked about this. Like, you're not allowed to talk about that, and so on.
You're not allowed to talk about it in the sense that like that can't affect how you
You're
like
scoring.
deliberate like
Yeah.
the rank and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. I think that's really reassuring for like any team watching. They're like, okay, like they won't if something messes up on stage and it's like not the team's fault, like the directors will take care of it.
Yeah. They just have
I
to
think
let us
that's
know, right? Like
yeah.
there's some issues that we see and we're able to like without
Mm,
them saying it, but more than anything the team has to communicate that with us because again, we're not always like watching every moment like second to second.
yeah.
We don't really know like what was supposed to happen versus what did happen. So it's just about them communicating that with us and
Yeah.
we let the judges know.
I wanted to talk more about the changes that you guys would like to see in the circuit and how do you think that could happen? For Kyle specifically, your first one was equity. And I think, would you like to talk more about what that would look like from previous to now and how that could change?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I think one of it is just kind of like the attitude of like PCs, boards and stuff. I think one thing I've very much noticed, if you're not like a top 15, 20 team, a lot of PCs don't treat you that well. I've seen in the competitions I went to, I've noticed a very stark difference where like, my team, we were not on like the top 20 team. We were kind of lower in lower rankings, right? So unfortunately teams like, they don't really care about us because like, oh, you're not going to place our competition. We don't need to treat you the best. I think that's essentially how we kind of felt. They didn't give like some of the leads weren't very well prepared. The food, the tech time issues we had, like they would give this team like an extra 20 minutes for tech time, but they didn't give us anything. Lighting queue mishaps, they would let this team sit there, fix their lighting queues for like 10, 15 minutes, for us to give us 5 minutes. And it's kind of just like this unfair like treatment. And that's like one thing that I very much instilled at NDC. Like, um, everyone was equal. I didn't care if you were the top team or like the worst team. Like you all were gonna get the same amount of practice time. You get the same amount of practice spaces. That's another big thing for me. It's like I made sure every team got like dimension sized practice spaces. And I know it's like realistic for like most competitions, but it was like very unfair. Like when I went to other competitions, our practice space was literally um like a foyer that you can't even fit our whole team in. But other teams got like a real dance studio. And that's like something that I very much wanted like to kind of sell on the circuit. Like you need to be more fair, equitable to all teams because every team matters. The circuit's not just the top 20 teams. We have 50 PC competing teams. We need to be like fair to all of them. So that's like one thing that I've been really trying to like instill, is just like the whole attitude towards non-piece, or like non towards like everyone in the circuit.
Hmm.
Sorry, just internalizing that more,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what more I'd want to ask. How do
You
you,
talked
so
about you
obviously
talked
one
about
thing is, oh, you got it.
because you mentioned like fairness before, and I was under the impression that like that was more judging wise, but like it was more in terms of tech time and like timing and how the practice space. Okay, okay, that makes more sense. That makes more sense. Yeah, I was trying to say
Um,
that.
how would you, I think you also mentioned like in our previous conversations before about judging perspective too. I was wondering how that could change about like judge, and I've heard this from other teams too. Like some judges don't necessarily give as much attention to the teams that obviously weren't first, second, and third, and that makes sense because I guess the first, second, and third teams like they placed, so like they probably have more critiques or more things to talk about. But even that, like that makes sense, but it's not necessarily right because that's like all the teams probably have the same amount of critiques, and there's all the obviously the same amount of criticisms. So could you talk more about that, but like from a judge's perspective, what you saw, and then like how do you think you could change that within Legends and making sure that's more equitable?
Yeah, I think there's definitely judging stuff that we've done this year to like kind of make it a little more because I understand, right? Like from like a dancer perspective, I think judging feedback is really important. And I think the problem with a lot of the feedback is that one, it's not in our control, right? Like it's more about like what are the judges seeing? What are the memorable moments that they have? What do they remember? What are they take the notes of? Because like you have to remember that they're watching these performances for 3 to 4 hours. So the things that they remember are the things that stick out to them. So it's like, how do we make it so that it's fair, right? Like, and it's also very dependent. Like, there are some judges that I think this is a very cool thing to some judges do, and I always recommend it to judges as they come in. But they like audio record themselves the entire time while watching a performance, and sometimes like it's not always like these are like the best, like, the judges that we get the best feedback from because we see their live reactions, right? So like even if they're not literally saying anything, and all they're saying is ooh or ah, like you can just tell like, oh, that moment hit, that moment didn't. Like that's enough, right? I think like to a not like to like a big extent that's enough. And I think like it would be cool if more judges did that, but at the same time, it is distracting for some judges. Like some judges maybe aren't at that like place where they can make those recordings, right? Some judges can only do it on paper and pencil, and that's not like a bad thing per se. That's just like something that they're more used like they can do it. Everyone's brain, everyone's like mind works differently when judging, and it's not fair to like assume that everyone is able to do it this way, right? Like some people don't talk when they're judging, and that's totally fair. Um, and so I think it's very dependent on like who the judge is and what they're doing. I know that as like Legends Board, especially this year, we changed our application process as well to make it a little more like like they have to actually like view so like it used to be just an application like what are your past experiences and so on, but this year we had like a more like process of you have to like watch 3 performances, like judge them, leave reviews. And so we kind of like when we're picking judges, we like look at the comments that they leave, and we're like, okay, these comments like you we see that you put like, effort in. And we're not looking at like the ranking, like right, like are you doing this in right ranking, because there is no right ranking. Every judge is subjective, and I think that's the other thing, right? Like um every team like they I know people complain a lot about how like judges give varying opinions for a set, right? Like some people like something, some people don't like something, and I understand, right? Like that's really frustrating as a dancer because it's like how could like one judge from the same panel like my segment and then the other judge doesn't. And while this is totally understandable, I think it comes down to the fact of like every person like in the circuit has a different opinion on the segment. Like you might like a segment, I might hate it, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad judge and you're a good judge. It just means that we have varying opinions. And so and I think that's what sucks, right? Because it's like how do we take the like how do we like take these opinions also with like an understanding of like a captain understanding, like what do we take and what do we not take? Like it's very subjective, and you just have to kind of like take it like I think the biggest thing is like teams need to schedule more time with these judges to like sit down. Like I know like after every competition, after a couple of days when we send back the judging sheets, every team gets the contacts of the judges that were at the panel. So like reaching out to them and getting like a better perspective because you don't have that much time with them on competition night. So I think like more than anything, if you didn't get like good feedback from a judge on that competition night, because you literally have like 2 minutes or 1 minute with these judges, like, or 5 minutes, sorry, like 1 minute with each judge. It is not enough. Like, I agree, it's not enough, but like, we can't give every team 15 minutes to talk to the judges on competition night. That's just not practical for like any competition to do. So it's like you reaching out to them immediately after, or like maybe just asking for their contact information there, or like real competitions will send you their contact information pretty soon after. Reaching out to them and like setting up some time to like talk more about it, I think is really critical and important for teams to do. And I think like sometimes they don't always do that, right? Like they don't always take the time to do that. And I know it's hard, but like it does make a difference. And yeah, and in terms of like smaller teams not getting like as much feedback and stuff, I think that's again, it's really hard for us to control. And the fact like we, as much as like possible, we tell the judges before and after to give like to make sure they're taking notes and giving feedback as much as possible to like every single team, right? But it's hard to like draw that line. Like what do we, like when we're sitting in those deliberations room, I don't necessarily know how impactful because they're talking. So I don't know, but I can't like pay attention to like how impactful each judge's feedback is for every dancer, right? Like I can't make that call. Unless like a team comes and tells me and they make it known to me that like this isn't working, I will not know that. Right? Like they have to be specific as possible or I'll never know that it's not working, if that makes sense.
I think one thing mentioned over there is like teams could involve the board to get more feedback and to involve better their team if the board is inviting. Because I think one thing you said there was if teams tell you, but I think most teams don't recognize that. They're like, oh, they can tell them like, okay, I reached out to a legend, I reached out to a judge, and they don't give me feedback, even though I reach out like 2 days afterwards. Maybe I'll just CC the board and ask them like, "Hey, we reached out to this judge. They weren't able to respond. I was wondering if you could give a response. I was wondering if you could reach out and see if they could give any response to us, and that might help in terms of like just being able to like give a slight push in terms of like, hey, this is a person who can help out. I'm like, this is a person who can help out, and we can use them as a resource. Not or use them as a resource, but like use them for help. Why am I saying use? Like ask them for help instead of just being like, okay, I'm attending competition. It is their role and responsibility just to look at the competition, and it is my role to only focus on my team. But they're also as willing as probably some boards will be willing to help facilitate the process even better. Because at the end of the day, like this is a dance community, and we want to make sure that we make better dance performances.
Yeah, and I'm sure that if you guys reach out to like if teams reach out to that individual competition board, maybe like because they're better in contact with the judges, honestly, even more than us, right? So like that individual competition board can help more. And we also have feedback forms, right? And like I think like some people don't take those feedback forms as seriously as they should. They just kind of fill it out to get those judging sheets back. But if they did take it seriously, there's a place where we ask about judges. And like if you there are some teams that leave comments about judges, and I know that they think that they're not addressed, but they are addressed. We address those concerns, we bring them up with judging chairs, and we if there's anything that we talk to like we will talk to those judges and tell them like, hey, we heard this happened, can you please like, and we'll talk to them about changings, we'll give them warnings, like it's a process, right? Like if we hear anything, but it's also like again the dancer's responsibility to when they fill out these feedback forms to fill it out honestly, and tell us the feedback that they want us to hear, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did you want to add anything?
when y'all are hiring or not hiring, like getting these judges to be in your competition, right? Like in Legends, I'm thinking in Legends, it could be the difference between like first and second place depending on which judges you get because they have different opinions, like you said. And that's like a huge, like that's huge weight on your shoulders, right? How does that process work?
So are you talking about like Legends judging panel itself, like for the actual Legends
Yeah,
competition?
which judges do you get? And what criteria do y'all follow to like get those certain judges?
Yeah, I think it's like a really long process. I know that we're like obviously nowhere near to the end of the process right now, but
Or
it's really hard because we decide this like that's the other thing. We decide this early on before like the teams for Legends are finalized first of all, which again like adds like we have to make sure that like we're trying to not pick judges that are from like a background of like a specific dance team, which is still hard because of all the affiliations that could occur. But um we try to look for like trained dancers, right? A little more that like maybe like make sure that they're trained in a specific style versus have just like performed in a fusion team and so on. And we really look at their like judging, like the way that they judge, right? The way when we ask them like judging questions, it's like, how do you guys work together as judges? Like, what is your if you guys have like a disagreement, like how do you resolve it? So we're asking all these questions again, it's a very hard process to explain just because it's very like again like it's subjective. We're just trying to do the best as we can as to like provide them with this fair experience. But at the end of the day, there is a rubric that they follow, right? Like yes, deliberations play a role into like moving people around, but there is a rubric that these judges follow, and we are transparent about the rubric. And teams are allowed to ask questions, right? Like we have like um, every competition, at least a week before, they'll get an email, like or like a text, whatever, from their competition panel, telling them to ask, like setting up a time or telling them to ask judges whatever questions they have. So making sure that you're asking the appropriate questions, like what questions are you asking these judges, knowing like what are their preferences, and but again, more than preferences or anything at all, there is a rubric that they follow. So like, and you'll see that rubric, right? You see the judging sheets and you get a better understanding of where you ranked and why you ranked there. Um, so yeah, so it's a lot more about that than anything else. I think we try to make sure that they stick to that
Yeah.
rubric.
I think also to add on to that, like, a lot of these judges have judged at PCs before, they've been part of teams and stuff as well. So like when they're judging at PCs, there's a feedback form. And clearly, like if they get bad feedback, that's something we take into consideration, right? We make sure we take judges that have positive feedback from teams, and we often know these judges as well, and we have our own experience with them. So that kind of helps play in our decision when we're trying to choose judges because we want to make sure, like you said, this could be a difference between who places and who doesn't. So we want to make sure you have the judges that have gotten the best like the most positive feedback, have very broad experience, and we know would work well in our panel. And there's a reason why there's an extra judge at Legends compared to all other PC panels as well to help make sure that we're getting the most like accurate scoring. for these teams.
Hmm.
Was there
Or
ever a situation where like judging went wrong? Like it went wrong really bad, and y'all like had to deal with like the consequences of that? Did that ever happen? You don't have to talk about specifics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if I've necessarily had to ever like deal with that directly.
yeah.
I don't know, but again, it's very subjective, so it's hard to say that like obviously like on the people on confessions are going to be mad regardless, right? Like that's like a big thing. Like they're going to be mad regardless. And so, but like people are going to be mad about any judging deliberation. Like even if like like I might see a performance and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but like someone else might not, right? Like the team that maybe got fourth versus fifth, or like was expecting to place at a competition is going to be upset by that, and that's just like human nature, right? Like you're going to get upset that you didn't place when you put in that effort, and that makes sense. Um, so I don't know if we've definitely like necessarily ever had to like deal with consequences because of it, because again, it's very judging is very subjective, and I think that's like it's just a hard place. Like what we can't do anything about it, right? Like if something, I think that's another thing. People think that we like are like a force that like pushes judges towards one side or another, which is crazy because we genuinely just sit there like inputting scores. Like we just sit there like tapping next and enter. Like we genuinely don't do anything. So it just happens. We just watch it happen, and then yeah, people mad, people sad, people happy. It happens.
Yeah, no, on the Twitter dude, no matter what happens, it's just like
Yeah,
it always just falls on usually the comp exec,
exactly.
and that's the easy
Yeah,
scapegoat. Like it's easy to just be
yeah,
like it was the director's fault because um even like on the Twitter you can't even defend yourself because like
yeah.
then you're just in
Like
denial
no.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? It's this weird
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
I know exactly. I see what you mean. Yeah. Um,
um,
in terms of, I was gonna ask with the rubric. I'm not sure. Like, do y'all make the rubric or does someone else make the rubric?
I think the rubric has been the same for a really long time. We
Okay.
work with judges, like old judging panels, to like kind of cultivate that.
Okay.
And then we take feedback every year. But like we usually, like for example, from last year to this year, I don't think we've really made any changes. Maybe
Mm,
we make like changes in the wording to make it more like specific. Um, like if anyone had any like misinterpretations about something. But it's usually stayed the same. I think like in the past, I think like 2 years ago, every competition was kind of allowed to like make their own judging rubric actually. Like they were allowed to like give weight to like whatever they wanted. But then people complained about how it wasn't standardized across the circuit, right? I think Bhangra teams have that a lot where it's like if you go to a competition, like some places creativity is more prioritized versus like cleanliness is more prioritized. Versus like in like our circuit, it's a more standardized rubric um across all competitions.
Yeah, I think once and like the way we have do it, if we do want to make changes, we host these focus group calls with judges in like
Mhm.
the
mm,
summer because we usually direct
Yeah.
get shows around like June-ish. So if like any like major changes like that when we created, you have to like get the input of judges, obviously, because they have the most experience. They understand what the issues are. Like at definitely me and Shreya, like we'll never know the respective judges right now unless we become judges, right? So we don't understand the issues and what they value and what's important to value. So that's why it's very important we
Hmm.
have these calls if we want to do make changes. And like you said, like we haven't
Yeah.
really made any major changes to anything. So 'cause I think so. I think the past few years, at least from the feedback we received, because me and Trey, we met with a lot of teams during the summer, honestly, and a lot of them honestly said they liked the rubric. They liked it being standardized. They think everything's weighted pretty fairly for the most part. So like that's why we felt that we didn't have to make any major changes to it this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, something else. Pivoting the conversation to like another topic about another change that Kyle talked about, and also Shreya, I think it's each other's experience, like the sustainability of the circuit, like being any major, to be honest, not even just pre-med, is really, really difficult. 40-hour practices a week. That's a lot. I was wondering your perspective of that from a Legends director and also dancers, obviously, but also like, how do you think that can be modified or made more sustainable at dance? I like one of the main reasons I started this whole thing was I recognized dance took away a lot more than it gave later on in terms of my joy and my passion. And I wanted to like recultivate that and talk about better ways of doing things. And I was just wondering if you guys had any input on like ways you could see that within Legends or just things you'd want to talk about.
Al, do you want to go first or no?
I think it's a very tough issue, right? Hyper competitiveness. I think it's something we talked a lot about as a board of how do we like reset like the expectations. Like everyone's students, right? Like take care of your health. There's a lot of jokes like, yeah, you're a full-time dancer, part-time student. Like that's what I hear from a lot of these top teams, right? And I think that's just not what it should be, right? School and work should be prioritized. I've heard so many stories of people like rejecting job offers to dance on a school team, and I'm like, what? So like that's like some of the stuff like we really want to like this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be about helping each other out, growing. Of course, it's a competition. You can be competitive, but you could have both. You could still be a student. You can still do both. I think like prime example of that is Schalke, honestly. Like this is a team that doesn't practice till 5 a.m. every night, and they're still in Legends, right? And I think like Sreya can talk more about it. But I remember when I was a liaison for Legends, like my team was practicing for a long time and respected them, and I could never do that. But like the fact that Chelko's able to do it, but still be like we're cutting off at like midnight or like 1 or something like that. I think that's like something I very much admired. I think it's like really hard to like get every team to buy into that because they care so much about the circuit. I think there's a lot of stuff we could do. Like I know there's a big controversy about the 3-comp competition, which you can get into later, and there's a lot of different factors to talk about. But part of the reason why I think it could be beneficial is that if you're going to one less competition, maybe, just maybe, that means you don't have to like that's one less week you travel, one less week you have to spend all this money, this saves you so much time. You got traveling as much, right? But then the flip side is that some people are like, well, then teams are going to practice even harder. But then my argument is that if you're practicing till 5 a.m. already, what's the difference if you practicing till 6 a.m.? You're already kind of like affecting your health. The 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. difference is not going to really switch anything, in my opinion, right? But other people have, I mean, it's a valid perspective, right? So which is why I thought the competition camp would be beneficial, because you eliminate the number of competition teams go to, and then prioritize them and take care of their health, because now they're not going to 4. Because the whole idea is like you need to go to 4 competitions to make Legends, right? And so that's kind of one aspect, obviously, of it. But of course, there's a lot of different sides. What's Trey? You want to add anything else?
Yeah, no, I think like sustainability is so important. And I think like, people are like, oh, like if you were on Chelka, you went to Legends, you danced at Legends for the past 2 years, you were AKD director, like how are you still like in the circuit in a sense? And it's because I didn't get burnt out, honestly speaking. Like I think if I was on another team and I was on another team, like yes, like maybe I would have been burnt out just because like of the amount of hours that you put in or the amount of like I don't know, like everything, right? But like honestly speaking, I didn't get burnt out from Chalco. I was very much in love with the team because of the amount of hours and the amount of respect that we had towards each other's time for being there. Like we never wasted time when we were at practice, right? Like every minute counted, and that was why it was so sustainable. And I know you guys talked to Chalco previously too to kind of like understand more about that, but like I think we respect each other's time a lot, and I think like the circuit needs more of that. Is just like if you um respect each other's time. Like I think we all put a lot of time and effort into each of these things, and I think you need to like understand that everyone's priority is not what this is, right? Like everyone's priority is not placing first in a competition. Everyone's priority is not making it to a PC. Everyone's priority is different. And so like respecting that like boundaries is really important when you're cultivating like a team dynamic, and setting those expectations at the start of the year, right? Like what is it that we want to do? Like guys, do you want to have late practices? Because like if we don't respect each other's time, we're going to have late practices, right? Like if we're not taking care of each other, if we're not taking care of ourselves, then that's going to happen. So I think setting up those expectations for yourself, for the team, and as especially like as exec or captains, like making sure you're trying to cultivate that. And I know it's not easy. Like this is not an easy task because again, like I'm not sure. I wasn't on a team that practiced until 5 a.m. So I don't know what it was like, what was going on behind the scenes or what those practices look like. Um, but yeah, like I think burnout is real, right? Like in the circuit, and that's why you don't. There's like a lot of people in like Legends board and leadership stay for so long. It's because there is burnout and people can't like make it till the end, right? Like they can't stick it out until like they're able to like make it to leadership or stay on leadership and take care of the circuit, or like look after and make sure that everything's like kind of in place. But sustainability is really important, and I think we do that with Legends board as well. We give them like DDN blackout periods. We check up on our board members. We make sure that they're like healthy, that they're safe, they're well, like that they're getting the time and separation from board that they need, and we value that. And I think as long as you are able to value that separation and understand your board members or your dancers, then there will be sustainability.
One thing, when like Kyle mentioned, was like full-time dancer, part-time student. I think one member on my team, what I do is to say is you're a person, a student, and then a dancer. So basically, if you're a full-time dancer, then like you don't have your like that's the hierarchy no matter what. Like for any person, but once that dancer becomes higher than person or student, like because you cannot be a person or student, you can't even show up dance as a person or like as a human being. So like when you're there, you just can't dance properly, and I think that's just very rough because you aren't able to work on attractions. You aren't able to like really internalize all the inputs that you need. Like I think what I heard from Chelko last week, 3 days ago, was like Dio was saying, people are motivated to dance outside and it's a mental break. It's not we're zoned in during practice. It's I'm dancing for fun. Even though it's helping my team out, I'm just still individually practicing. That's like a different mindset than being at practice. And like that creates a huge difference in just like how you're engaging with dance. So it's just like interesting to see a dynamic of like if you become a full-time dancer, you can't exist in your other places where you need to be. And that creates a like cycle of like then you can't be a dancer properly. And if you can't be a dancer properly, you're gonna push again. And then it just like is like never ending cycle that like goes down and down and down and down. As just I thought about it. Any thoughts about that? Or I say stuff and then like if you guys want to add more, you can add more. But yeah,
No, yeah, I think your individuality is like really important when you're a dancer, right? Like the person that you are shows a lot when you dance. And you can see that like when you practice outside or you're actually like your heart is in the piece, right? Like when your heart is in the dance, it shows. And I think that's so important, like you said. Like I think and that's comes from like prioritizing yourself as a person first. And you don't have to do that separately from the team. I think like it's like what Dia said, like it's how do you do that while being a dancer on the team, right? Like how do you do it in conjunction with it? You don't have like if you're dancing for a piece. I know that she would actually suggest this a lot for me, but it's like um, yes, you're learning this dance piece for the team, but how do you incorporate your own uniqueness into it? What is something that you do? What is something you do with your facials? What is something to do you do with your characterization? How do you put your soul into the dance moves that you create, right? And I think it comes from like working on it outside and taking your own time to do it, right? Like you don't have to like this like I think every time you just do the dance for being on the team, like just to place first or just to like go somewhere, like that's not going to work. If you learn the dance for like I don't know, for wanting to create something, right? Maybe and that also depends on like how the team's culture is, like how much creative freedom that they're able to give you sometimes, right? Like in terms of like characterization, facials, like how much are we encouraging that and how much are we like allowing team like dancers to be kind of like true to themselves in a sense, and giving them that space outside of practice to be able to like work on that would help.
for sure. And like another part of that, I think maybe Kyle or you mentioned it, but in the beginning of the season dictating like if you want to go stay up late. And like some people automatically say that, like just like that, but they don't think about the consequences. Because like at least in my head, how I try to play it out is competitive versus committed. People who are committed to dance will stay up and like won't work on their school assignments, won't work, will be there the whole time and be present, and that will help the team so much more. But if you think about being competitive, like being getting first at a competition will not necessarily be the thing that drives you all the way forward and
Mhm.
makes you have that love of dance and push, push, push when it is hard. Like even in the life mottos, like the people who's gonna be okay, this is gonna be I don't know how like I don't know if I should say, I was gonna say it, but like the people who be coughing up blood when they like run multiple repeats of like a lap to get better at track aren't the people who necessarily like they do have that drive to like be an Olympian and stuff like that, but they also enjoy running. They enjoy being able to like move their body in that manner and just run, 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 and run. And that's just one thing that I take away with dance too is like if I engage in dance with myself, that's so much more valuable than like engaging with dance for a desire to win. And like that's feels like it takes away from dance in a huge manner too, because dance is just expression and storytelling. And if we can't
Mhm.
engage it with ourselves, then like that will never translate to necessarily a win. Sometimes, obviously there are
Mhm.
exceptions.
Yeah, I agree.
Y'all mentioned a word earlier. I've been waiting. I've been waiting. What is a PC?
Partner competition.
Partner competition. Okay. Thank you so much, dude. Thank you so much.
Sorry, so bad.
Um, Partner competition. So that's like bid comps.
Yeah.
Mid comps,
So
not mid comps.
yeah. So bid comps is saved for the Ross circuit, but we are partner competitions because
Hmm.
we are our competitions, we value them as partners, so we don't call them bids, is what the like what the thought behind it is.
And
Yeah,
also to add on
that's
to that, it's also we trying to get away with this idea that we are an all-powerful entity that manages everything. These we are here to support our partner competitions. We don't control every aspect, and that's like something I really want to like reset in everyone's minds. Like we can't control every small thing with competition, right? We can support them, provide them resources, but ultimately we want to let them have their own autonomy, right? Like imagine
Hmm.
you're a competition. You don't want to be have an organization telling you how to do every single thing, and I think we're really trying to do our best of having a good balance of making sure we're standardized around the circuit, but not also controlling every aspect. I think that's something the teams have to really understand. It's like, yes, you're going to partner competition. We're here to support you guys, and if anything bad happens, we're here to help. But also understand like these competitions have some autonomy, so like we can control every little thing.
Hmm.
tell me more about that because that's still really confusing for me. How does that work? Like, how do you work with a partner comp? Obviously, I'm assuming the rubric is standard. You make sure the judges are good. What else goes into that?
Mhm. So, I think for competitions, they kind of follow the same structure, right? I think for large comps, like they have a mixer, you determine your shoulder game, right? Stuff like that. Tech time, making sure you have that standardized kind of. And then you post time practice, you reviewing, then you perform, right? I think those are kind of like kind of like key aspects of competition, and we kind of make sure every competition we have does that. But then it's up to competition to figure out how they want to kind of approach that. How do they want to do their mixer games, right? How do they want to determine shoulder? Our only restriction is be double blind so that it scale's not involved. It's totally random how shoulder is determined, right? Then it's up to the team, so you can do like so many different games. Sorry, it's up to the competition. So you do so many different things in that aspect, right? And then I think a lot of there's a lot of different things you can do for a competition, like I don't know, like transportation and all that other stuff. We let competitions kind of decide how they wanted to approach those issues, like how much hospitality you want to give teams. We don't tell competitions you have to give teams a crew neck, a shot glass, all this stuff, right? Like they can choose what kind of swag hospitality stuff they can give, right? And that's more like the weekend stuff, we just make sure that the competition and like the show is kind of like standardized between each competition. I mean, outside of the weekend stuff, there's like our scanned and our like swab analysis processes. So swab stands for standardized uniform audition video viewing. That's basically how competitions watch audition videos. It's a new thing that's been implemented in like the past 3-4 years. Essentially, all we do is we anonymize all the team videos so that when the competitions judge the videos, they don't have any biases. Of course, like it's kind of easy. You're gonna know some teams because you know the background of the videos, obviously, and you're gonna know some dancers. But for most teams, you don't really know that stuff. That's why we kind of do this, and it's like all scoring on spreadsheets, and it's totally like fair. You have like 5 to 10 judges, and that's kind of standardized to all competition. But then for each competition, they have their own comp boards, right? Who are judging the scores, and they can choose what's a what looks clean to them, what looks creative to them, what impacts them, right? So that's kind
Mhm.
of where it's like we're standardizing like the rubric, like for like SWAB, but then the competition boards like have the ability to judge what do they think it's good for their competition.
Y'all are there with the competition, like even before the competition starts, um, like helping them choose which teams are going to be in the competition.
We don't necessarily help them choose what teams are going to. It's like the audition viewing process where like they watch the viewing themselves and then they rank their teams and then we kind of just like make sure that they're going down the list so that they're not like skipping teams down the wait list if that makes sense. But we're not telling them what teams to choose. It's more like teams decide what comps they want to go to
We just
and
Mhm.
make
so
sure
on.
they're being fair to all teams and they're
Yeah.
scoring. They're
Okay.
not like make sure they're not like, oh, we know this team, we're gonna give them 10, 10, 10, 10, and take them automatically. Because a lot, like for NEC
Yeah.
like Bungward teams, like we have the ability to kind of choose which teams we want to take. We don't they do like their own version. Suave actually came from NDC actually, so they still do like their own video. Okay, yeah, Shreya. They also do their own like video watching process as well. But then like they don't necessarily take the top 8 teams, because maybe they had a bad experience with them, right, or stuff like that. And that's another thing actually we can talk about how we give autonomy to competitions. If a competition has a bad experience with a team in the past and like we know about it, they can easily skip over that team because we don't want to further create issues. That's where we keep companies have this level of autonomy where like if this team has caused some issues in the past, they're very disrespectful, caused issues with the venue with and create a lot of fines. We're not going to force that competition to take that team, even though they're in their top eight for swab or something like that. So that's like where we give the little autonomy. Of course, competitions have to ask permission, and we have to like evaluate is this a fair reason to skip over a team, right? Because um like if like you can't just come over teams. Oh, we want to like we don't like them or whatever. Like there's not like a real reason, obviously. But if there's like an actual reason, like that's detrimental, then of course we're gonna like, be respectful and let them have that autonomy.
How often does that happen?
Not that often, honestly. For the most part, I feel
Okay.
like. Also, any issues you've had with the team, I think after a year or two, you have a new board on that team, a new board on the competition. Like,
You reset.
yeah,
And even that
It's
team,
usually
like the
like very
captain's
recent
reset, so
problems.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's very like recent problems that usually happen, and it's not that many. It's not
hmm.
that prevalent. Yeah.
I'm going to ask some more fun questions, and I guess you can bring it back to anything you wanted to ask about. But I wanted to like get more into your heads about like just what this experience has meant for you for being dancers in the circuit and also being on Legends board. So like one of my things I want to get to know about is like what were your memorable events being a dancer, being on your board for your comp, and then also what's your memorable event so far being on Legends board?
Um,
You can take some time to answer the
my
question. You
most
don't have to.
memorable moment. Yeah, yeah. I think dancer is easy. I think like on Chelka, it's like it's a little easy for me to say memorable moment. Board might be a little more hard because it's like more like the entire year. I mean, I don't know. There's just like a lot of moments. I think dancer wise, it would be the first time we placed um first in 2023 at like I think it was Infusion that we placed first at. And 2022, don't ever watch Chelka set that year. It was actually
I
like
already
it
did.
we
Sorry.
we were struggling, okay? We were a bit of a struggle. And so like we were constantly like probably like last or second to last or something that year. And so then like especially for my exec year cuz like we were in 2022 and then there was not that many people that stayed 2023. It was actually a really like new team 2023. And so placing first at that team like at that comp was like really like it was like an insane thing for us. Like it was just like unbelievable that we had placed first. So that was like just like a very like core key memory that's like in my head. Um and also like yeah, like I think any Chelka moment where we like spent it outside bonding, like outside of like the competition weekend itself, was just a lot of fun. And then AKD wise, I don't know how Kyle feels about this, but I always thought that like the Thursday nights before the competition weekends were always they're really stressful, but they're a lot of fun because I think it's like you see the entire board. Like, yes, you have board meetings, but like this Thursday night is like the weekend that like is the night that like everyone like insanely grinds it out. So like to see everyone just like I don't know, we sit like until like really late together and just like grind out everything, make sure like everything's going well. I don't know. I think it's just fun, like to see everyone kind of like sitting there and just doing work, and like screaming at each other, kind of. But like it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
are you
think for
Kyle, what about
prepared
you?
for
me,
this year Thursday? With
Yeah.
Eric shooting at you, be like, Kyle, get this guy.
I think for me, it's not really on Thursday because I've only been director once for NDC, and that Thursday we were pretty chill. Honestly, that whole week was like
Oh,
so like
okay.
I don't know. I think going into, I think we did a lot of we front loaded so much work. Honestly, it's like the week of I thought I'd be more stressed compared because the year before NDC we were very stressed, but that
Hmm.
week we got this shit. We got this. We're gonna do fine. So then we kind of slept at like 11, 12. We got a good like 7 hours of sleep. We were chilling. But I think
Screw you.
my favorite moment for NDC board was I think so one thing directors do for NDC, and I think other comps might do this. Any comp I went to hasn't, but I think some of the comps do this. The directors go around to each team, all kind of like legend board members do, and they just check in, make sure if everything's okay. And what we did is us directors went with our red shares. We went to every team, made sure everyone got registered, but then we kind of told we had a surprise for them. We got them samosas and mango lassi as like a midnight snack for them.
Ooh.
So like, when we went to each team, we told them that the joy in their faces, they were just jumping. I remember Talash particularly, they were just like jumping up and down. They were so happy. And it was like honestly, it made like all the work we did worth it. Like seeing everyone so happy. like that. That's like it's like you know what, all that work from like since last May to March, like it was worth it just to see that those reactions, them being happy about something like so small, obviously, but it was like real, like it just made me happy, right? Um, and then I think for Kiss Month, I think my favorite moment is actually kind of funny. So like it wasn't really dancing related. So we were at our last PC and us guys, like we have like 8 guys on our team, right? So like we were before we were going to EP or whatever, and then like we were like in our pregame or whatever, and then all the girls were like, oh, let's book our Ubers. We want to go to AP right now, and us guys were like. We just want to chill, hang out with the guys, right? We just want to have fun. So we didn't really drink that much. We were just chilling. Then instead of taking Uber, we all clown car in like one car, like 8 or 9 of us in this really ass small ass car, and we just like started driving, like seeing a Bruno Mars. We were having a great time. We went to the AP obviously, and we had fun. But then we just kind of left, and then we went to get like there's this really good like Indian stack place in Philly that we got like mango lassi gatti rolls or whatever. It was so good, and that's what we did. And it was so funny because then the girls called us like, guys, we're outside shivering in the cold because no Uber's coming for us, and we're like, oh, that's your issue. We're getting food right now. So we were having the greatest time ever. And like, we all like really much bonded as like the guys on the team. And it was like our last PC, obviously. So it was like kind of sad, but like honestly, it was like one of the best ways like to kind of end that whole competition was not like our best experience, obviously, but the way to end like the night and like that weekend, that was like the best way, honestly. Just bonding with our team.
Adorable.
Dude, I agree. Something about after competition before AP, um, is there's just something magical about that. Where everyone's just like, all right, it's time to forget about dance, forget about studies, forget about literally everything, and just enjoy, like for the like next 5 years and just compress it into today type of feel. There's really something magical about
Dude.
that. Like me, like with Roftar, we were really stressed because we weren't placing that high. But apart from that, like towards the end when we were like, you know what, like let's just like we all just as a team were like, okay, now like we should just prioritize just having fun. And towards the end, since we got so close over the year, those memories are so close to my heart because we were truly family towards the end of the year. And I'm sure like every DDN team feels this. And when you're that close with some people and you just work really hard and you decide to like finish it and enjoy, that's some of the best moments I ever did. For sure. For sure.
I One thing that Kyle mentioned that spoke to me, I've been doing recently more, is just like that appreciation means a lot. Like if that's your most memorable moment, like people being appreciative in the circuit can go a long way because
Mhm.
I've been doing that a lot more in terms of like if people message me on like, oh, we really appreciate this and they should oh, they for like that makes my day. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, thank you for saying that. But also the same like thank like I'm able to like now maintain a relationship with them and also like be like, oh, what did you tell me more about this and learn more about certain people, but also like in comps, like when I tell my liaison like, oh, I had a really good experience with you guys, or like when I was a liaison for Imde Moksha, like they text me after like, oh, that was a really fun weekend. It's just like means a lot more. And I think that's just something that like not a lot of people do. Like you know that you had a really good weekend with them and you're like, I'm really grateful for it, but you just don't say it. I feel like if people just like got over that period and like just said something, like it would mean so much more for the other person, but also at the same time for you too.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of like the happiest moments for anyone comes from like those moments of appreciation, whether like for it's like yourself or for your team or for someone else or because of someone else. I think I think you're always the happiest when you're appreciative, I think at least.
Yeah. And it makes people feel seen and like heard.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I did
Hmm.
something for other people. I'm not just
Hmm.
a person in the circuit doing my responsibilities as Kyle was debating, where he was mandated to be a liaison for production, dev production, and director, no
Yeah.
matter what. You couldn't escape. Um, I did want to talk about that because what I know like Shreya's response, but I'll let her say it. Like, what's like something you learned from your team or from like NDC or like AKD that like you wanted to take to Legends and implement? My answer for Shreya was like, you guys had shoutouts at the end of practice, and you try to bring that to Legends. So you can talk more about that if that's something you want to mention. But that was what I wanted to talk more about, like what things or practices you've seen really helpful that you wanted to like bring to this different community.
Yeah, I think like there's I think like, in overall, right, like the summation of it was just the appreciativeness that you talked about, just like showing care for each other, and being able to draw that line between being professional versus being like a friend or just like being like casual, right? Like I think I'm gonna be going to a lot of, God forbid why, like going to a lot of competitions in the spring. And I think like a biggest thing like when I'm at these competitions is trying to go up to these teams and just kind of like be like, yo, like I'm Legends director, but hi, how are you? Like I'm like I don't know, like I shut up. Anyway, like I think it's just about bringing that like fun component into it. I think that's always something that I enjoyed on like AKD and like Chelka was just being able to like be like really close with the people that you work with or that work beside you, right? Like they're not working under me. Like my board is not under me. They're with me. Like I work with them. And so being really appreciative of that. And I don't know. Like I think that's like a biggest thing is just being happy. Just yeah, like everyone should be happy when working together, right? Like I don't want everyone to be like depressed and like, oh crap, why am I here? It's kind of a situation.
I think for me, one thing I did for NDC last year was that this competition was not mine. It was theirs. My job is to serve you guys, my board. The reason why NDC was successful last year was not because of me. It was because of my board. Well, they all like locked in the weekend up. And that's something that I really try to like want to do like when I started when I'm like leading the organization. I remember like one question for our relations director interview is like, what how do you set goals for the year? Like what's like your first thing you do once you have your board? And for me, it was like always like I asked the board, what do you want to do this year? What are your goals? What are your expectations? And that's what I did with all my committees. Like, what do you guys want to do this year? And let's achieve that, right? For NDC that year, I was like, what was I asked her to board, what was our goals? And our goal was like, let's be one of the best competitions in the nation. I'm like, that's fine, let's do it. We can do it, right? So like I asked them like that's like what I kind of approach, and that's what I've been doing with my committees. I'm like, whatever you guys want to do, pitch your ideas and let's make it work, right? I know like a lot of my committees, like for circuit relations and stuff like that. I'm like, you guys, this is your time to make change to the circuit, put initiatives out. What do you want to do? I'm open to listening to anything. Doesn't mean we can obviously do it right, but that's like how my whole like attitude is. Like the weekend of Legends will only be successful if our board steps up, and you know what I mean. I don't think directors obviously play a huge role on everything, but for me, like, I really just strongly believe like this is not my competition. It is like our board's competition, and we are here to serve our board. It's like I think that's like a common misconception people miss. And I think that if you have that attitude, you'll be very surprised to see how much more passionate your board is and how much harder they're willing to work. And I think that's something that's very important. That I think other companies should really adopt because like just because you're directors doesn't mean I've had like people I've seen some directors be like, "Oh, I'm a director. Listen to me. I know everything right." Blah blah blah. I'm like, you do not have the right to say that to anyone, right? Like you can tell someone like, "Are you free? Can you help me out with this?" That's the way you should be approaching stuff. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the culture and like attitude, kind of like a Shreya saying. We want everyone to work well together. And I'm pretty sure this year our board's like very much well connected, and they're having a great time. We had like our
Makes me really happy.
yeah, we had our feedback session with them, and they're all like very happy with the culture and everything. They're all like, "This is like we're like they're enjoying your time," and that's like something I'm like most proud about at the end of this. Is
Yeah.
like we have made this an enjoyable experience for everyone on our board, and I think that's something that I want to bring that from my previous experience, and I think we did a good job with that, right, Shreya?
And I think, yeah, and I think that's what a director's responsibility is, right? Like, I think more than like actually doing the work, it's creating that environment, right? Like, environment to allow the board to want to be there, to want to do the work. Like, you can never force anyone in life, like, not dance related, like anything in life, you cannot force people to do work. You will not do work if you feel forced to. You only do the work and feel like you want to do the work if you want to be there. And this is like the same for dance teams. Comp boards, legends board, any team that you're a part of, you only want to put the work in and the effort in if you are happy to be there. You want to put that effort, and that comes from like internal motivation, right? That's not necessarily that I can be like show you a cookie and be like you get this cookie if you do this work. Like that's not how it works. So I think yeah, I think like Kyle said, I think that's something that I really like valued at AKD too, and I think that's hopefully something that we've been able to bring to Legends board as well.
Why do you guys have to say that? No, my
Also,
hold
for
over the dishes
context, how
off.
big
Lost.
is the board?
42.
40, yeah, 42, 40, 43, yeah,
I think
big
it's
board.
42.
Oh, okay,
Something like that. I would
okay.
What
look
of the
to
dish mid dish? Looks like my cookies won't work anymore.
Mhm.
Why
Your
do you guys have to say
cookies?
this in front of him? Now it's lost. Like now I can't get him to do things. He's changed.
Wait,
Sorry,
42
sorry
people
guys.
is crazy
Sorry.
for the board.
I
42
hope I
people.
hope
in
Yeah,
and we're
what do
talking like production, like audio, that type of thing,
you,
right?
Yeah, it's we do it. We obviously have it structured differently, where it's just like we have like different structure for things. We have like
Mm.
tech that kind of like runs
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and then this also includes like I think the 43 includes directors and our steering, which is our advisors as
Yeah.
well.
You have to also think that
could you?
it's 42 people, but it's not just for the week, it's for running a circuit. Like
Yeah,
Mm.
any
Yeah.
other competition doesn't have like a circuit relations committee per se, right? That's dealing with the whole relations, all the relations we have with our circuit. Our registration chairs, like they do a lot of actually the reason we have 4 to 5 reg chairs is because we have to run like
so
20
much
plus
work.
PCs, right? So like in reality, like if it was just 10 teams, like most comps, of course you only need two. But since that's like why it's like our board's a lot bigger because you're also running the whole entire circuit. So
Yeah. And like our tech team, for example, there's 5 of them, and it's not just because they're running tech in the weekend of like doing audio issues, but because they're genuinely creating like applications. Like they're making the app, which I think is insane, right? Like
yeah,
they're working on the app continuously and trying to get out new features, which takes a lot of more effort than just running a
What app
competition.
is this?
the
The
Legends app.
Legends app. Should download it. Plug.
Hey, dude, hell yeah.
um,
Subtle
Android
plug.
version is coming soon, I've been told. So hopefully he comes.
I don't think we should have an Android version, but it's my
Okay,
own
well, what
opinions.
what is the Legends application like in a few sentences?
Oh, it has like all of the so it's like it's just Legends and it has like all of the competitions for the entire year. It has the lineups for everyone. It shows the
Okay.
placings and we're gonna have like it'll show like it'll link you to front row and back row videos, live stream,
ooh,
ELO. That's where you can see like all the ELO for the year. And you can play around with the ELO too. There's like a simulation thing.
yeah, the simulation
But
thing
yeah,
is
Mm.
cool. Um,
yeah,
I
it's
did
pretty
want to
cool.
ask or talk more. Obviously, you guys are the directors, but I did want to get a more inside look because I can't. I could. It would be a tough adventure, but it could. But like, I'd love to know more about like the board, like what you've seen, like really good experiences between them, like how do they show up, like what's the best experiences you've had with them, like just to learn more about the board and their perspective, and not just get the directors part of Legends, but also get the board
Hmm.
part of Legends too.
Yeah, I think if you want to like a little bit less time commitment, being a board member is so much fun because all you do is you go to like one meeting for your committee. You usually how it works, you have a weekly committee meeting with your primary director, and then oh yeah, kind of how it's structured is like we have 3 directors, right? And we have like a lot of different committees, right? So each committee, each committee has a primary director and a secondary. So like I'm primary for logistics, registration, committees like that. So like we all have our own committees where we're primary. So essentially, like that doesn't mean I don't interact with everyone else on board, but like I primarily interact with my committees, obviously, because I meet with them every week, no matter what. So I meet with them once a week, my primary, and then if you're a board member, you also do. We have these global meetings, which are basically like our whole board meeting, so everyone knows the updates, and that's like bi-weekly, and it will become weekly in like the spring. But that's kind of like a little less time commitment, and I think if you're a board member, you have a lot of fun because you get really close with your co-committee people because lots of time you have to do work offline outside these meetings. The meetings are usually just there for updates, obviously, and then I think a really fun experience is our Alcon. It's like our board retreat. Essentially, we all like meet up in the city where we're hosting Legends. We do like our logistics team does venue tours, and everyone just like hangs out. We obviously do work, of course, but we kind of just get to know each other better. We do our photo shoot, and it's a really fun experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to meet so many people, and one thing that was really cool about it was like when we met all these people for the first time, like in person ever, and honestly, it felt like we never knew them because of how many meetings we had. And it was a great time. I don't know if you want to add anything, Shreya. We threw Shreya in a pool. It was kind of fun.
You threw a lot of
Yeah,
people in the
they
pool.
threw me in the pool. Yeah, yeah, but like mine was crazy. Like 2 times is insane. Anyway, I think yeah, I just think it's a lot of fun. I think you get to meet a lot of people. Like I think I can like safely say that I can go to like pretty much any state, even apparently Oklahoma, and I would know someone there. And I just think that's really cool, especially post grad where like it's hard to meet people.
Is
I think
Oklahoma
it's so much
Aloo?
fun. Huh?
Is Oklahoma Aloo?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's all. Yeah. Yeah, but like what I'm saying is like there's just so many people everywhere that you get to meet, and just especially post grad, I think it's just such a great opportunity. And I think from a board perspective, I think it depends on your director's light, right? Like I think like Kyle said before, we try to give like our board members a lot of autonomy in what they want to create. So like I know for example, my judging chairs have been able to take I know that they had a lot of initiatives this year in the terms of like changing around the application. We changed like judges used to be 2 years removed. Now they're only have to be 1 year removed. Like we did make quite a few changes, especially with the biting appeal process as well. And it's stuff that we're really proud of, a lot of documentation that we've put out. Um, and so like I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's really fun. It is work, right? Like as much it might be less work than a director, but it is still a lot of work. I think it depends on how much effort you put in, right? Like I know some of these committees, like I was talking to my house team yesterday and they were talking about how well they're also like really close now. And they're talking about how yeah, there's some work that we could be doing in like 30 minutes, but we sit there on a call for 3 hours because we just yap. And I'm like, okay, that's yeah, this is on you guys. This is on you guys. But like but like it's like that, right? Like so it's just about like how you split your time, what things you're prioritizing, how you're adapting to your like own schedules. And I think we're like to a very large part very understanding about like our external like about your external commitments, and we'll work with you as long as you're communicative, right? Like as long as you're telling me that like hey, like, this is happening or like I can't do this. Like obviously like take your time. You come first and then forward. But I just think it's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of people, do a lot of things.
How much would you say board contributes to Legends versus directors? Like if it's a split, like
It's all like they do the work, right?
Yeah.
Like I think like we do the delegation. They're doing all the work. We just kind of make sure that it's all going in path and we take like care of like the background stuff. So all the work that you see being put out, it's all them.
We just give them the resources they need to succeed. That's all we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like those MD posts, sorry, just because it's I'm the primary on that team, so I got to toot my horn. Though they work so hard on those, like you should see the amount of time and effort. They're so talented. Or like the app, for example. It's not like we're designing the app. Like we're just kind of saying like, oh yeah, that would be cool. Or yeah, maybe you should look into that. But they're doing all the work. And I think they come up with some incredible work. Like our board is very talented, I will say that.
How often do y'all like how much work is being on the board of DDN and like how much work goes into throughout the whole year until Legends?
I think it varies by committee, and there are some weekends, sometimes where it's gonna be like I think like it's depends on committee, but there's like some certain periods where it's like a lot of work. Like I know right when we onboard everyone, Reg had a lot of work because we're like pushing out our PCMOUs, we're doing interviews for partner competitions, right? We're doing all that. So and these interviews are an hour and 15 minutes, and think about 40 competitions applied, 40 times 1 hour. We were I don't we were on these interviews with them, bro. It's like 7 to 11 7 to
I'm
midnight every single day. We were just in interviews.
terrible.
It was so much work, right? But
Yeah.
then, but right now, December, right? Just we're chilling. Before we finish fall comps, we're haven't started spring comps. We're taking a nice break. And I don't like the one thing I'm telling everyone is like enjoy the break now because when spring starts, it's go go go, right? Then so like, that's kind of how it is. Like it just depends. Like liaisons, I'm prior for liaisons, right? And they our coordinators didn't have too much work to do all throughout until like November. So they had to interview like 70 people, right? And then that's like, oh my God, we're so busy now. Like so, but then now they accept everyone. Now it's like, okay, now it's kind of like more chill, right? So kind of like the same thing, right? Some committees are a little more steady than others, but like, just there's certain periods where it becomes a lot, but then you get a nice break. So yeah.
Yeah.
so Kyle secretly hates me. That's the reason I didn't get a liaison. It's his fault. Okay, got it. No, I'm just kidding. I have no bad blood. Realize it's an app. Actually, I should not have said that. I realize it's an application. I seriously
Uh,
do not have any bad blood with
That's
anyone.
stuff we put on the Twitter, bro. We gotta put that on the Twitter.
Rude.
Yeah.
Um, one thing that I wanted to understand is, what do you think dance has meant to you so far in your life? Because Nitish and I have like every single that's like what you said about 3 hour conversations. It's so bad because we have like an hour call every week to like talk about like okay what needs to get done, and afterwards like another hour call about what's going on with your life, buddy. How are you doing? And then like Nitish and I have had so many conversations like what dance has meant for us and what it continues to mean. So I'd love to like get that in perspective from you guys about like dance as a dancer, but also dance as like a director because I'm pretty sure there's just more of the like it's cool to have comps to showcase our culture, to showcase what we've been able to show on so far as like an example of an answer, but like just wanted to learn more about if there's any specific stories, experiences, or thoughts or ideas you've had.
Yeah, dance means a lot to me. I think I've always been dancing since I was little. I'm not like I'm not like the best dancer. I wouldn't go win like first place or lead dancer at somewhere, but it means a lot to me, and I have like a really big appreciation towards the arts in general. I think it's just a really good place for you to like be able to express yourself, or just let loose. I think like the first thing that I do when I get stressed or I have a lot on my mind is this is like so stupid. I literally stop everything. I close my laptop and phone and I dance. Like I just get up and I put a song on and I just start doing something. I can't do Bhangra. I'm really bad at Bhangra, but I just start doing Bhangra. Like
Oh,
it's
what?
really
What?
stupid.
What about the OC Origins TikTok, huh? Ah, that
Girl,
is.
my level is like right here. Anyway, all I'm saying is that it's just a lot of fun. I think I have a lot of fun with dancing, and I am really appreciative of dance when you can see a person through the way that they dance. I think it's just really cool when you can see that their soul in the dancing, or like see how much work that they put in. And that's also why I'm an organizer. I think as an organizer, I'm very very appreciative of dancers, and that's like a big motivation for me is like seeing being able to like watch them put on these sets is just so incredible because like you can just see how much effort is being put on by every single one of these people and it's just so beautiful. Like I think like the past two competitions I was on stage like taking videos of like the teams as they got like first, second, and third or whatever. And you like if you see my face like in person, I'm literally beaming every single time like someone's placement. Like you can just see the like amount of excitement that these teams have from being able to like showcase such a beautiful performance, and it's just so inspiring and it's just so beautiful. I think like those placement videos, even if not placement videos, just like the pure enjoyment that some of these teams have. Like I think something that's really cool at the end of like each performance, you know how like the lights go off and then everyone starts screaming and they're like, we did like I don't know, they just everyone starts screaming. I think that's so beautiful. Like I've always loved that as a dancer. Yeah. Like it's just so much fun. Like you're just hyping yourself up, like you're hyping each other up. You guys are just happy to be there on stage. Like I think even after like after you leave the stage, like sometimes like some teams like or dancers they'll be like, oh I messed that up, like I messed this up when they're upset. You know what I mean? Like they'll have that whole like thing going on, but like that moment on stage like I think it's just so beautiful because you're just so happy to be have like put on that set, right? Like that is like pure enjoyment and like happiness and gratitude right there. It's really it's just so pretty. Kyle.
I think for me it's very different because I didn't really start dancing until freshman year, and that was more because like oh my mom's like I want you to join an Indian dance team, blah blah blah. Like that's like the only reason why I really joined, and part of it's because from where I lived, I came from a very like not very diverse like area. I was one of the few Indians in I was like the only Indian in my school. So like I was never exposed to this culture and stuff. So, going to case and like seeing all this was like crazy to me. And it was a really good way for me to connect and learn more about my culture. And, I learned so much, honestly. And I think for me, one thing is like I am not a good dancer at all. I was always in the back of the segment, so you don't even know. I was better at like, the logistic stuff of the e-board. That's why I'm more involved with the dance, like the comp board, but I still did dance in a few segments, right? But kind of what Shreya is saying, it's like when you're on stage, like no matter how bad I was, like there are just certain times when you hear your favorite mix and you're dancing on stage, you just smile and and the audience is cheering. Like it's just that moment, like those like that 1 minute on stage, like that's like one of the best experiences ever. And then even after that, like one thing, for dancing for me is like I'm not good at it, but like the fact that I still try to do it, even though I'm not good at it, that's like something that, I really try to do with a lot of stuff. Like in high school, I joined like a theater club or whatever. Can't sing, I couldn't do anything, but I just joined because like they need basically how it works. If you're a guy with a pulse, they'll take you, right? So like, okay, I'll do it. You know what I mean? So that's why I kind of did it there. But like that kind of like attitude where you're still doing stuff you're not good at, you're going outside your comfort zone. I think that's something that's really important to have in life. Like a lot of like like a lot of my people on our team like even told us like they like respect like me and other guys who have never danced before because in the sense that like it's really hard for us to do something outside our comfort zone. Like for them, it's like maybe playing like tennis for the first time and like they're really bad. We're like we don't want to keep doing this because we're so bad. But like they're like they respect how like night in and out we try to get better for dancing. It's like hard, right? Trying to learn Bongo for the first time, doing all this new stuff, and even be really bad, and still coming to practice the next day and spending 3 more hours. Like one of the most biggest frustrations for us is like it took like the girls like 5 minutes to learn something. For us guys, it takes like through 2 hours because we've never danced before, right? And you know how frustrating it is, like for us to like, constantly do that, and we had to put in way more extra time just to not even get as good as them, just to get like like semi good enough to be put on stage, right? And it's like so frustrating. But I think the fact that you're able to do that and put the time and effort in, like really helps like develop your work ethic. And I think that's kind of what it means for me. Is like, just helping me like, grow as a person and like being put outside my comfort zone in that aspect.
Yeah, and I think like another part is like I think a lot of my friends like weirdly so like my friend group is very artistic in the sense of some of them are like it's not necessarily dance, right? It could be like cricket or like it could be like a sport, it could be singing, dancing. Like they just have something, and I think the part of like what Kyle said, like putting in that effort, and then being so happy about it. Like I think seeing other people happy makes me really happy in return as well. And I think like when you have something that you're so passionate about or you're trying so hard about, and then you end up like being able to do that thing, or you're like I don't know, you just look so happy doing it. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing. I think people look really nice when they look happy. And I think that comes from a lot of times doing something that they're passionate about, which can be dance, which can be something else, but it's a lot about the effort that they put in.
I fully agree with that because I went to a bunker workshop. Yes, I told you guys before the call started, and like everyone who were there was beginners, but like everyone still enjoyed dancing and everyone had a smile on their face. Like no matter who it was, if it was like a 70-year-old grandpa or like a 7-year-old kid, and there's like of multiple races, multiple genders, and it's just like exciting to see that because like I could dance with my full happiness there too, but it was just really exciting to see people engaging with something new and different from their own culture, but at the same time just being able to like embrace that happiness within it too. And in Bhangra especially is like a dance form that's supposed to be that like swag happiness thing too. So just being able to see that was just like so exciting. And I felt like I danced better. Like that's probably one of the reasons I enjoy dancing, just because everyone else was
Hmm.
happy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like me too. Like I don't know what else to add on to that because like y'all everything y'all say like it hits me so to my core. And we don't talk about this a lot in DDN, which we talk about a lot in this channel, especially with Chalka, with the MD Milk Show about how like, everything that you said, Shreya, like we had this exact same conversation, the exact same word said with UNC Chalka, which is weird, but y'all have the same mindset. And I think that's really cool um about this channel. I'm just gonna shamelessly plug this channel, dude. I think like conversations that we've been having on this channel have been so wholesome, and we just talk so much about like, oh, like this is art. Like we're here to have fun and express ourselves. And in comparison to like the Twitter and like everything else that DDN has, like DDN has around it, right? Like I'm so glad this is happening. So yeah.
I wanted to shout out Kyle real quick too, because like I really love that aspect of like just being able to challenge yourself, and you can find happiness in that, even if you know you're not as good as anyone else. Like anyone can engage in dance, and like no matter how stiff you are, it's just like as long as you just have a desire to like showcase who you are, I think that translates very well. Like we were talking about it, like competitive dance sometimes takes away from that because you like I think a person said like something how like if there's a 7-year-old showcase performance for like their classical school, like you're like, oh, his arm's gonna be sharp, not for the 7-year-old, not for the 7-year-old, but mostly for herself. But like there is that aspect, but like fundamentally, like if you take away the competitive, at the end of the day, it's just even people who don't necessarily aren't the best dancers, you're still a dancer and you still can engage in that with that movement the way you want to and still create happiness from that. And like I think it's so amazing that a lot of people choose to do that with dance. So like they know they're like not that they're ever going to be the best or anything, but like dance doesn't have to be you have to be the best to be partaking in it. It just means you just want to be able to challenge yourself and get outside your comfort zone and do something that probably will create happiness for you. And talking about
Yeah.
Nitish shouting out that channel, I wanted to go to a funny question, and I guess it will be somewhat staged because I technically want you guys to say we hate Unleash DDN, but like I didn't want to get your guys' thoughts. So like, okay, we're gonna stage it just so I can get the clip. It would be funny.
Mistake
I hope.
in the
I
middle of
hope
the
if this
podcast.
comes in the pod and we forget to edit this, we'll be
Wait, I'm
down for.
scared. I saw that. I'm scared. Guys, people take us so out of context. What if they just post?
Wait, it's
Oh my God.
completely fine. That's like no, wait. I'm posting the blooper of like we hate. They say we hate Unleash DDN, and then I'm just gonna keep it like that. Probably like explain a comment, but it's fine. It will be fine. But like,
Yeah, if it
okay,
looks
so you
weird,
start.
we'll make sure to like take it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I'll start it, and then I'll get your actual response later. But okay, we're gonna start. Three, two. Okay, what do you guys think about Unleash DDN?
We hate
Hate
it.
Unleash DDN.
Y'all are smiling,
Oh,
dude.
We can't do
Yeah, we
it.
can't do the straight
We
face. I'm gonna be quite honest. That's not
can't
gonna.
do the straight face. Me and Kyle are the worst at faking faces.
I can do it. We hate
Okay, you can
Unleash
do it. I can't do
DDN.
it.
Yeah, Loki again.
can you expand on that? Why? Why do you hate Unleash DDN? Dang, I thought I was doing actually doing something in the circuit. That's awful.
Y'all were smiling ear to
Okay.
Wait,
ear,
yeah.
just like we have
Wait,
this
I'm
DN.
terrible at this. I don't think you understand. Like, I have a
Wait,
terrible
she has no
RBF.
straight. Wait,
Like, I
during
can't
interview,
even.
PC interviews, like when it comp just said something really stupid, like she cannot keep a straight face. She turned her camera. It was so
Yeah, I'll
obvious.
just look at them and be like, and then I'll just turn off a camera because I just can't.
She
I
can. She
can't control
cannot
my
keep a
face.
straight
It's really
face.
bad. It's really bad. That's why I depend on my other two co's to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge is when you're interviewing like these competitions and the person asking questions can't turn the camera off. And when they say something like so like
Yeah,
you want to just like like you can't
die.
react at all.
Yeah.
You should be like, yeah, okay, yep,
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
good. Like it's so
Yeah.
hard.
This is when
I
you're
just turn off my
them.
camera and let Kyle speak.
Yeah. This is when you're interviewing them for to be like partner
Yeah.
comps.
It was
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
because one of
Or like
my
board members, like any interviews.
Mm.
yeah, for one of my committee members, she was director of Jellic, right? And I think during the interview, they were all so scared of me because I had a straightest face the entire time. They were like deathly like scared of me. And that was so funny because like I thought like when I interview people, I thought like I'm nice, but apparently I'm not. Like I scare people.
Dude, both of y'all are intimidating if y'all aren't smiling. I think so.
It's
Right?
crazy.
Intimidating is
I think
crazy.
I'm. Yeah. I think it's funny when people think I'm intimidating because I think in person, or actually, like there's a reason why I'm the most bullied in Legends board. Like it's just I'm just really not intimidating. Oh, yeah, don't worry about him. Kyle, I think is intimidating. Varun is very intimidating.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah,
no,
guys.
Okay. Did you
Dude,
guys want to give your
let's
actual
bring it
response?
back, huh?
Wait, yeah. Wait, did you want to give your actual response? To, like, what? I'd love to hear like what's your guys' perspective on Unleash DDN.
I think it's
Like,
really cool what you guys are doing. I think that like there's a lot of conversations that are really worth hearing from people, and I really hope that like people are able to like I don't know get better light of like what's happening in the circuit or who's doing what or like the real to do backstage scenes. I remember I watched this like Moksha one actually. I just thought it was so beautiful. It was something about like there's been a couple I really just like that stuck out to me. Right, there's always those like TikToks that like specifically like pop out at me and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. That's so sweet. And I remember like actually really enjoyed Moksha's TikToks especially. I think they had such a beautiful perspective on like their team and their dance dynamic that I just thought was really beautiful.
Yeah, I think we already
Yeah,
talked about
that was all
Jayesh about
Jayesh.
like why I reached out to you. Like well, I just always want to do like a podcast type thing. And I saw your TikToks, and then I think like one of them like about thinking about like the classical and like the difference in judging and stuff like that. Like it really like for our team really spoke to me in that aspect. Like I know how frustrating it was for like the girls in our team, like how much like issues they faced for that. And I really remember like I was in with our leadership channel. I was like, hey guys, can I reach out to them? I think that we should do a partnership with them. They're like, yeah, go for it. And then I just texted you, and that's how it kind of went from there. And yeah, I think you guys are doing really great stuff. Like these are conversations that need to be said. And the thing is, like we were talking about before, legends, we can't do everything. And it's like people like you who are alumni of the circuit, who are using their platform to talk about this stuff and putting in this extra work, like that's what we need from the circuit. Have people to like to put in extra work like that and like, do stuff like this. So like I'm very thankful that you guys are doing stuff like this. It's very helpful.
it is a lot of extra work.
Yeah,
I think like every single
Jayesh,
reel takes like 2 to 3 hours.
when Jayesh heard that, yeah, like when y'all contacted Jayesh, he was so excited. Like so excited. Like y'all don't know. Y'all think he was excited, but he was like 100 times more excited. just the fact that like y'all are behind this and y'all understand like what we're doing is
Mhm.
is really really cool. Yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the gender bias one specifically. I know it's a pretty hot topic, but like, how do you think that could be modified in this circuit, or like, how do you think that could be changed to become less of an impact or an issue?
I think it's a really hard one to address just because like there's a lot of different like perspectives behind it, and even I'm not really sure about like what all the perspectives are, or like what all the reasonings are, or like where people are coming from, or like not like thinking that there's gender bias, but like what the behind like I guess like everything, right? Like there's so many different like perspectives about it, and I think like the biggest way honestly to do it is just to have conversations on it. I think it's really important to hear from like other teams, right? Like on what they think the issues are, or um where they think things are going wrong. Um, like who is like there's no culprit, right? Like usually with all of these things, it's usually like something that's built up in the circuit, and it's not necessarily like, oh, this one person is the reasoning, and if we just take this one person out, like everything will change, right? It's more of like, I think it's just about having conversation. I don't think it's necessarily that I have like an opinion of like what exactly like what I think, like, oh, is there a bias versus is there not a bias? It's just about hearing each other out and trying to like help each other in that
Mhm.
perspective.
I totally agree. I think one of the issues, not just concerning this, but with the circle overall, is like clearly our circuit's not perfect at all, right? If you have issues with something, let's have a conversation about it. I feel like us directors are very receptive. We're willing to listen out to see what the issues are, rather than go complain on DDN confessions or whatever, vent out there. What's that going to do? Be part of the change, right? If you want something to change, you have to have conversation. Be part of the solution. What's complaining going to get you, right? Venting. I understand you have to vent, obviously, your frustration stuff, but like if you want to see change, be part of the solution. Help talk to us. How, like sure to say, let's have these conversations, right? Like, there's no way we can make changes if we don't get feedback. If you don't help us come up with solutions, right? I think that's like one of the biggest things. Like people like complaining about biting and stuff. No one's submitted a biting like appeal. Like, oh, what are we supposed to do? Like if no one does it, right? There's so like
Yeah.
people like don't submit feedback. What are we supposed to do, right? Like if you don't submit the feedback, how are we supposed to like improve competitions? How are you supposed to improve everything? It is like so hard to get any dance team to submit like 80%, like 80% of the team to submit the feedback form after a part of a competition, which is crazy to me. Like if you want this competition to improve, you should be providing us with the feedback so that we can help make these changes, right? So I feel like it's also on the onus of the
Yeah.
dancers to like, if you want to change, you have to help us with it. Like we can't do everything. Like, we don't know what's going wrong. If we don't know what a good solution is, so what can we do, right?
Yeah, and like anonymously like putting it somewhere is not going to help anyone or anything, right? Because like how am I supposed to know who this really is? I'm not going to like no one's going to make decisions and changes based off of these anonymous things, right? Like the only way that we're going to make any change is if we're have like actual tangible feedback and tangible like evidence that like we need to make a change here. We need to make this difference here. And having these conversations, like I know we have the Discord and like no one uses it, right? Like people just join it, people just have it like as like a I don't know what they think is going to happen. And before COVID, it actually used to be much more prevalent. People used to have like these there's like a Facebook group and stuff like that. And people used to have conversations. People were very much involved with the circuit and improving it and growing it. And that's how we made all these judging rubric changes. Like there was like a really big change that was made, like 2020 era, like all of that. Like there was a lot of changes made then. And it's because there were so many people that were actively involved in these processes, right? Like it wasn't just about dancing, it was about like how do we help it change, right? Like this is for the dancers by the dancers. We're all here for each other to support each other. But if like you're just dancing and you're not helping us improve the organization's component of it, then there's nothing else that we can also do. There's only like so much that from an organizer perspective, like I can't just base it off of like this one person's opinion, right? Like it has to be like a circuit opinion.
When this podcast goes live, maybe we can do something like a feedback form or just link something that y'all have on your website already, and hopefully get some more feedback your way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Jayesh
Not to
wants
toot
to.
my own horn. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. Jayesh.
Not to toot my own horn again, but I wanted. I'm just letting it. I just like thinking about the clip and like how to make it better. But like, one thing I wanted to ask is, what's been your favorite clip so far that we've posted? Choose a particular one. Don't choose a gender bias one because I will be upset.
Wait, I'm trying to look. It was definitely a UMD Moksha one. It was there was two I think that specifically stood out to me. I think one was telling the story. I really liked that one where they were talking about telling the story through the dance. I just thought it was so beautiful. I just thought that was so like, um, yeah, they were talking, and I think they referenced like one of the other classical performances that had been done in the past, and how they told a story. I'm a huge fan of the classical circuit. I think like the stories that they put on is so beautiful. They like it's just insane. So I'm a huge fan, and I really like that one. And then there was also one that they did with the choreo process, which I thought was really cool. How they talked about involving other dance, like their dancers and newbies into the process. I thought that was really interesting and such a cool like take on like how to incorporate newbies because I know a lot of teams actually like push their newbies aside, and that again doesn't really bring in good sustainability practices. So I really like those two specifically. I just really like the way like the stuff that I was
Mm.
learning, I guess.
Yeah, the one you were telling about telling a story. What I really liked about that one too was at the end when Nitish and I were like beating up DD and being like, oh, we don't tell stories that matter. It doesn't matter. But like Darshini said, like the stories that you tell, like being able to give people entertainment and be able to make people
Yeah,
happy, like
yeah,
that means so
that
much.
was so nice. I
Yeah,
agree.
it like
Yeah,
made us both smile so much. Like, oh, that felt so cool.
yeah,
About
yeah.
the including everyone in the choreo process, I thought that was really cool too. But like, it sucks that it didn't get me as views. I was like, oh, it's not like I don't care too much about the views. Nitish and Riley are always on me, but like the views are an example of like how much reach it gets. So I was just like, ah, I wish it did better. But it's what happens.
Yeah.
Interested to hear yours.
For me, I think it's including the newbies in the audition video process. I think that was one that, spoke to me a lot because, I think it's very easy for a team just to be like, you know what? We need to get into competitions. Let's put our 15 best dancers, screw the newbies, and let's go in, right? Literally what a lot of teams do, right? And I think hearing it from a team like Texas Falash that goes to a lot of partner competitions and them saying it speaks a lot. It shows that like you can still I think it's really important to build your confidence for your newbies. Like they've never performed before. And if you're telling them you're not good enough to be in this video, which is like maybe they are not as good as the other dancers, obviously, but like we all started somewhere, right? And how else are you going to build their confidence? How else are they going to develop as a dancer? And I think that was like a very important one that, I think it was good to talk about, especially coming from a team that is is very competitive and still does very well,
100%. I think that one was like really interesting to hear about like how giving newbies a chance to like be in the choreo process in the beginning, like obviously motions with their choreo process, but like the audition videos like creates like again space for people to be seen and heard, and that's like so motivating for them to continue to dance, to not really feel the burnout and to like be in there and engage with that at a much higher level. So yeah,
Yeah.
do you want to say anything?
Um, I think I think we should have one more question and then finish it off.
I So I don't have any more questions, but I obviously
Okay.
want. Oh, well, there might be more questions, but like I wanted to hear more about like if there's anything that you guys want. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
podcast, our interviews, we always try to create space for anything that you guys want to talk about or anything that we didn't mention. So if there's anything that you guys wanted to bring up, feel free
I
to
just want to say
do that.
before y'all answer that, like y'all hit us up because y'all wanted to like y'all felt like one, the role of the director wasn't talked about enough. And like y'all talked about throughout this whole podcast, it is a black box. Like no one really knows what happens, what y'all do. And it's really important to know that because it's really easy to just blame y'all because no one knows what y'all do. And y'all hit us up and y'all want to change GDN a lot. And like we I think that's really cool. So please talk about that.
So what was the question?
So basically, I told you what to
The,
talk about.
the question was basically like I just want to say like these two people are really interested in changing GDN for the better. And then answer whatever Jay said, which is like, what is the thing that y'all really wanted to talk about in this podcast, and the one thing that y'all really want to change in DDN?
If
Do you
there's
want to go
nothing,
first
that's
or should I?
totally fine. Okay.
Or do you
You can
want to,
go
Kyle?
first, or do you want
It's
to
not
go?
Okay.
really. Let me give a modification. It's not really about like what you want to change in
Okay.
DDN because we talked about that a bit earlier. But just like, what's one thing? Like, what do you want to bring up and what do you want to like? Because obviously we are not in your
Mhm.
brains to know exactly what they want to bring up.
Yeah.
So we just want to create this
Oh,
space
okay,
for you
okay,
guys
I
to talk
got you.
about anything and then
Yeah,
go
yeah.
off that conversation.
I think for me, I want to grow this circuit more. I think like we have 100 teams, over 100 teams in our fusion circuit, but only like 40 to 50 compete at partner competitions. I think one of my biggest goals is really just to expand that in the sense that like making sure more teams can compete at PCs and like really building them up, helping them improve. Hopefully I want our circuit to expand. I want to have more partner competitions. I want to have a bigger season, right? I want to have like more areas. I feel like one thing I really noticed is like DDN's like concentrated in certain areas. Like Ohio has like three comps, Texas has two, Georgia has like four, three or four, right? But then like New York has nothing, or like like Florida has nothing, right? There's all these like different, like really weird states don't have like. There's a lot of areas that don't have anything. If we can really, if you guys look in the Legends website, there's a map with all of our teams and like competitions, and they're very like concentrated. And I really want to like expand that and have like DDN and Legends be like a bigger entity. Okay, relax, Shreya. But yeah, one thing I really just want to see like us grow as a circuit, and like if we really want to become bigger, and stuff like that, and have more influence and be like a bigger championship for everyone. I think that just helping us grow these other teams, helping support foster the growth of other competitions. That's my ultimate goal.
Oh, I had one question about that. Like, what would be your biggest advice for a team, and what would be your biggest like for a newly starting team in DDN? What would be your biggest advice for a newly starting comp?
So I think for teams, I think it's so important to reach out to other teams. I think most teams are willing to help out and provide you stuff if you just reach out. I think it's so easy for teams to be like, "Oh, I'm too scared to reach out to this team." But I remember, I think I was watching you guys' podcast how the Lodge reached out to BSB and they helped them develop. I think that's like so. Like I think most teams are very nice and are willing to help out, right? So I think that's one thing. Reach out to Legends. We have all these resources. We have for the past like 2 years all of leadership has been developing like 100-page topic called Team 101 that has like all the information you need to start a team. And I think that stuff like those resources are so helpful. I think if you're starting a team, those are the stuff you need to do. And also be patient. Like um you're not gonna get into like it's really hard to get into PCs right away, right? It's really hard to do all this stuff. Just it's gonna be a long process. Just be ready and don't burn yourself out and just have fun with it as well. For a competition, I think one thing's important. See what competitions are close to you and see like what if you ask them for help as well. I think the same thing with the teams. Like most competitions are willing to help, I think. Well, I know at least Friend DC, we were willing to help. People reach out to us. We provide them with our resources. They're willing to help. Again, contact us at Legends. We have a 100-page document called Comp 101 that has everything you need to start a competition. Our Sticker Relations Committee has already met with a couple people this year about how to start a competition and they need more support. I think those are like the stuff. Just don't be afraid to ask for help. I think the most successful competitions I've seen are the ones that are not afraid to ask people for help and network and do that. If you think you do it by yourself, I mean, you probably can, but it makes it so much harder. Let people help you, and I think you guys can easily succeed.
Two things I wanted to mention before sure I could add any input because I'm going to forget them is that I think I was texting Abby about it. It's just like people who ask like, oh, how do you become like Texas Slosh become competitive on years? Like, don't don't because it's so like rough and like burnout's real. Like all that sustainability aspect is real. Like it's okay if it takes time. You don't have to be like a one shot wonder in just 1 year and be like Texas Slosh. And the second thing is like I think the circuit relations team does have um DDN mentors, right? That's a
Team
Mhm.
team
program that,
mentors, like a mentorship program. Yeah.
yeah, that's a, I just wanted to like shout out that program of like apply there if you're a new team and like
Yeah.
try to get resources and help from other mentors.
Yeah. We've been having great
Yeah.
success. A couple teams have made PCs for the first time because of the program, and that's something that we are really happy about. Like it is working. So
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I echo that point. I think like when we were like again 2022 to 2023 transition for Chalka, even like we reached out to so many teams that summer, like asking about so many things. I know that as production manager, I met with like literally production house companies and asking them like how they do set design and asking like I think it was like Drexel Gelic the year before, and I really liked their costumes or something. And I reached out and I was like, "Oh my God, like, what did you guys do? What was your inspiration?" Like, and I was trying to find out. And like, that's how you're able to make a set the next year, right? Like, I think a lot of it is just like, don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to reach out. Like, I absolutely love it when someone like a team reaches out to me about production help. I like. It's something that I'm very passionate about. So I get so excited when a team reaches out to me and I would just show them everything, tell them everything, and it's just so much fun. And so yeah, like don't be afraid to reach out if you're a team. Like again, these people aren't going to bite. Like I know that like I think sometimes there's that. I think that's another thing that I wanted to say on the podcast was like people in the circuit aren't going to bite you. They're not going to be like they're not going to like kill you if you reach out to them. Everyone's just a person. Like everyone's just a college student, right? Like we're all out of post grad. Like it's not that deep. Nothing is that deep. Like none of us are like actual influencers, celebrities. Like literally nothing. These are all just people. So like don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to like shoot them a DM. Don't be afraid to get their contact information and be like, I saw you do this. I saw you do that. Like, how did you get there? How did you do that? If they don't respond, then they don't respond. But there's literally no harm in you just reaching out to them. And yeah, just like I think it's easier to be connected. And I guess another thing to say, like, we're not scary. I promise. If you ever see any of Legends Word people at comps, you guys should come say hi because I promise we're kind of fun. We can be kind of fun. And I have a great time meeting like the people in the circuit and it's really fun. And yeah, just don't be afraid to like reach out to us if you guys ever need anything.
I think what you mentioned about reaching out is just like it shows that you're appreciated. Like when you reach out to Dressel Angelic and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, I really
Yeah.
like your set. Like it's just coming back
Yeah.
to that idea of like appreciation. Like, oh, I really appreciated seeing what you guys and like that makes them feel like again like, oh, I want to help out this team. Like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like it's kind of like back to networking 101, but like in a way,
Yeah.
it's network. It's not a transaction if you're building a relationship with that team because you're like, I really appreciated this about you. Could I learn more? And most teams would be
Yeah.
willing to like say that. And like even with DJs too, like I think TK like got help. Dia got help from like TK, Ashwin,
Hmm.
Suresh. Oh my God, so helpful. Like in me creating this whole channel too. Like there have been so many people. It's never been like me who has been able to do it. Like even before Nitish joined, like I reached out to, like 4 or 5 people just trying to get input and advice on like how to grow and how to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I think it's just about reaching out and not being scared of each other in the circuit, right? Whether it's a comp organizer or a dancer or someone else. Everyone's just here for the dance. Everyone's just here to kind of make the circuit whole. And it's a lot of fun doing it. So I want everyone to have fun doing it too. And also team environment. I think leadership, like of any team, any organization is just so important. So like just make sure that your team, your dynamic is what you want it to be, right? Like you're setting that your team up for success because as leadership that's like honestly your biggest it should be your biggest goal before like placing first before anything else. It should be to cultivate that like foster that like really positive environment with your team.
I loved you mentioned the aspect about making the circuit whole because I think there are a lot of people who want to make it whole and make want to make it improve and better make dance experiences, but there's not necessarily an outlet. I guess this is now an outlet, but in addition to that, like a lot of what you see on dating conventions, like toxic captains, like that only happens like with certain groups, but like that stories will probably get propagated more than the good stories. So I
Yeah.
guess just a reminder that like there are good things that happen out there, just like we need to pay more attention slash like just create more of that like trust that like we can make a better dancing experience for everyone.
And there has to be something positive, right? Or else people would do it for like a month and then quit. Like people would not be this involved in any competition if they didn't feel there was something worthwhile there, right? Like you're not gonna everyone would have been quitting for a year if there was only negative things. There is some positivity in anything that you do or anything that there is in the circuit. And I think it's time for people to like key in on that and be like, hey, what is it that means a lot to me about the circuit? And trying to increase that, right? Like try to key in on like how can we strengthen that part of the circuit? How do we bring that in a little more?
Kyle, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think I
Just totally
totally
fine.
agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Shreya also like, um, was there anything that we missed that you wanted to talk about, um, that you want to mention right now?
No, I think that was the biggest thing. I think it's just for people to not be scared to reach out. I think it's everyone's here. It's not that deep. That's the biggest thing, is really nothing is that, like, nothing is that deep for you to not be reaching out, for you to not be involving yourself in something. Have fun with it more than anything. And I don't know, like, just make sure that you know that, like, the circuit is for, like, is something that you feel passionate about, like something that, like, these people are all putting together and putting for each other. And it's not necessarily about, like, one person doing the best or one team succeeding or anything like that, but it's for everyone in the circuit, right? It's a community. And I think, like, that community is so, I think it's, like, honestly unlike anything that I've ever seen. The DDN circuit is just such a beautiful thing, honestly, because, like, there's people from all across the country in random schools that you just wouldn't even know that there was, like, a South Asian population there. And you're like, oh my God, they have a team, they have a competition. And you're like, wow, this is so cool. And you get to know each other. Like, I can go anywhere. And if I say that, I don't bring this up to everyone, Kyle,
Yes,
okay?
you
I'm not
do.
talking about DDN. Okay, okay. Anyway, but, like, if I was to, like, have, like, some common, like, there's always someone that you can have, like, a common factor with, and having DDN as that is just something that's really cool. You can meet a lot of people that way. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Kyle and Shreya, thank you so much for joining us on Unleash DDN. I mean, this is an amazing podcast. Like, I think you could tell, like, by the way that I was listening, like, this is really cool for me to listen to, just like the logistics of everything. It's so cool. But, just this is an amazing podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything like social wise, connections wise that we can forward to you in terms of links that we should put on these videos?
We can talk about it. I don't know that we necessarily have anything right now that
Yeah.
we want
Okay.
to. I don't know, Kyle.
I'm gonna stop the recording real quick, and then if
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing else,
Yeah.
because like it takes time to upload, and
Okay.
then we'll go.